CJ Flyer back with Fire, another YouTube video. Some interesting discussions around league expansion in the NBA. West coaches and executives grow exasperated looking at what records might qualify for the postseason in the East. This is something we've talked about a lot in videos over the past couple weeks, how the Eastern Conference has anywhere from 2 to 4 teams with a winning record, and everyone else stinks. Just to put it lightly, they just stink. They're awful. There's a battle going on as far as teams that are borderline on the eastern side. Well, they really are on the eastern side of the United States. We got the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Memphis Grizzlies, and the New Orleans Pelicans. Of course, you look at like the National Football League, and you have a division with Chicago and Minnesota and Green Bay, all of them, Detroit. So Minnesota's right there in that geographic region up in the Midwest. So it only makes sense. Same with like Memphis. You think in the National Football League, you got the Indianapolis Colts, you got the Tennessee Titans. So again, it makes sense that any one of these three teams, geographically speaking, would join the Eastern Conference. And West executives are telling ESPN that they believe that this dilemma can be addressed by just not having conferences at all. And instead, we just have all 30, or I guess with the expansion, it would be 32 NBA teams battling it out to be the top 16 teams in the NBA. So I'm just kind of curious, and we're going to go ahead and look at the standings as they are now and see what the top 15 teams, or I guess top 16 teams would be right now in the NBA. So obviously the Cleveland Cavaliers would be the number 1 seed, followed by the Boston Celtics. But after that, it's really all Western Conference teams at this point in the season. We got the Warriors, the Thunder, the Rockets, the Lakers. That's 6 teams right there. I suppose at 8-5, yeah, so the Nuggets would be at 7. And then after that, that's finally when an Eastern Conference team gets reintroduced into the mix. You'd have the Knicks at 8. You'd have the Magic at 9. Then you'd have the Suns at 10. The Clippers at 11. Just keep looking down the list. The Grizzlies at 12. The Mavs at 13. The Timberwolves at 14. The Kings at 15. The Spurs at 16. So if we were to eliminate conferences and end the season today, which is obviously ridiculous, but if we were to end it today, you'd have the Spurs making the playoffs. That's how weak the Eastern Conference is right now, and that's why you got these West executives coming in and saying, hey, we want our teams to be competitive too. Now, of course, the reasons this wouldn't happen, for one, none of the Eastern Conference teams would want this to happen. Outside of maybe the Celtics, I think they'd be okay with it. I don't think anyone else, and well, heck, even the Celtics, you play more teams in your conference than you do out of conference in a season, so the best teams in the East get better they get a better advantage as far as overall record in that regard. But I don't think a lot of these other Eastern Conference teams would be too thrilled about the fact that going with no conferences, there's no chance that the Atlanta Hawks or the Indiana Pacers would even make the playoffs potentially. So it's not going to happen, one, because all of the Eastern teams would vote against it, and two, because if you think about it, first of all, travel would be a nightmare. The way it's set up right now is beneficial in the sense that it reduces the amount of cross-country travel that teams have to do by having teams play more teams in their division, in their conference more often, so they don't have to travel as much. But the other issue would be TV broadcast times. I mean, it's already frustrating enough it was the day before Election Day where the NBA does not play any games. So on the day before, they have all 30 teams playing, and they were staggering those start times by 15 minutes. And it just so happened that the Indiana Pacers at Dallas Mavericks game started at 8:45 p.m. Central Time, which is 9:45 p.m. local time for the Indiana Pacers fans. Yeah, I mean, just, you'd end up with so many scenarios without conferences where you'd have teams like the Celtics, the Knicks, the Sixers, the Raptors, the Wizards playing these late night games, more frequently against teams like, Portland, like anyone on the West Coast, Warriors, Lakers. So those are the two main reasons I see it not happening. Additionally, even though divisions don't really mean a whole lot in the NBA, so to speak, especially towards, playoff standings, they don't mean anything at all anymore. It's you still play the teams within your division more often, and of course you got division rivalries, which some divisions nobody cares about. Like if we go ahead and sort this by division here, I mean, we already know for a fact that the rivalries of the past, like Pacers versus Pistons, Pacers versus Bulls, those don't get a whole lot of hype anymore. I don't even think local fans care that much about them. You're still going to get eyeballs on games like Lakers versus Warriors, but that's mainly because of players on the teams. It's not even so much, a team rivalry. It's different than the NFL or the MLB or other sports leagues where teams will hold those rivalries no matter who's on the team. But nowadays, Celtics and Knicks still draws a lot of eyeballs. That's still a huge rivalry game. But a lot of these rivalries are just kind of, they're dead. They don't, team rivalries are not that big of a thing in the NBA. And so, putting that aside, despite that, you still play the teams within your division more often than you play other teams in the league, and they're all geographically based for the most part. So if you remove the conferences, you remove that aspect of the scheduling, I would assume, and that's just gonna it's gonna be more travel, more hectic scheduling. That's why the league's never gonna do it, is because of those reasons. Now, of course, if you had teams from the West going over to the East, which ones would you choose? We already mentioned Memphis, we mentioned New Orleans, we mentioned Minnesota. Without looking at a map in my head, just thinking about it out loud, I should say, if we were to add like Vegas and Seattle, let's say as an example, I would think Vegas would probably go in the Southwest, maybe the Pacific. The problem is the Pacific, it just has... Okay, well, hold on. First of all, Seattle would go in the Northwest. That's for sure. And if you look at the teams in the Northwest, I'd say Minnesota and OKC are the first two out geographically speaking, right? So we put Seattle in the Northwest. We put Vegas... I want to put Vegas in the Pacific, but maybe it makes more sense to put Vegas in the Southwest. Oh, Jesus. This is where things get really difficult. But yeah, Seattle would definitely go in Northwest. And at that point, I'd probably pull OKC out and put OKC in the Southwest. And then I guess you'd move Memphis and New Orleans to the East. I think that's how you'd have to do it. I don't know. Without looking at a map, it's kind of hard to figure out. But I thought I'd just bring it up for fun. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But yeah, just kind of interesting story coming from ESPN regarding West executives saying, oh, let's just remove the conferences. Which, this year it's really bad. It's not always like this, but this year it's especially bad as far as the, how competitive teams in the East are compared to teams in the West. So, let me know what you think in the comments down below. And without further ado, let's get into game predictions. Now, this is something that we've been doing at the end of every video on a daily basis. I predict the games, like the outcomes, and keep track because I don't think anyone else does that, and it's pretty fun. And we compare to the FanDuel Sportsbook betting odds. I'm not promoting or encouraging you to use FanDuel Sportsbook. I'm not partnered or affiliated with any sports betting or sports gambling site. If you're going to use them responsibly. I'm just sharing my opinion and comparing for fun. Now, I'm thinking about making it its own segment or its own video in the future. It's something I've kind of thought about recently. I noticed that the viewer retention kind of tapers off at the end when I start doing this. So let me know in the comments if you're watching this far. But I'm thinking either making them shorts or just making them their own separate video that particular day. and then having more videos talking about just the ongoings of the league. So, we got a lot of games tonight, NBA Cup games. We got Nets and Sixers. I'm going to take the Sixers at home. We got Ben Simmons with the Nets on the road in Philly. That's never a fun time for him. And although the Sixers have really been struggling and they really can't win any games, they're playing the Brooklyn Nets, okay? Jared McCain's been balling. I'm leaning towards Sixers on this one. Maybe they'll finally get a win added to their record because they've been atrocious so far. Celtics and Wizards, definitely taking the Celtics on the road. Warriors, Pelicans with all those injuries. I don't even recognize half the starting lineup most nights these days. And I don't know why this game's on ESPN other than the fact that the Warriors are playing. It would make a whole lot more sense to me, competitive-wise, if you had like the Pacers versus the Bucks. But I guess the Warriors draw eyeballs. So anyways, taking the Warriors. Pacers, Bucks, I'm going to take the Bucks. They've been on a bit of a hot streak recently. And Giannis stepping up for this team, carrying them to victories. They've become interesting to watch, surprisingly. So we'll take the Bucks. Hawks and Bulls. Bulls have gotten a few surprising wins as well. Hawks, of course, are competitive. But we're going to take the Bulls at home. Chicago fans always show up even when their team's not good. Blazers and Rockets. Rockets have been sneaky good, like I've said in past videos. We're going to take the Rockets. Mavs and Nuggets. This really depends on if Jokic is playing tonight or not. Let's refresh the ESPN injury report and go up to Denver here and see. Jokic is still listed. He's listed as questionable for tonight's game for personal reasons. I don't know the full details on that, but I would say with Luka also being out, the team has proven they can win without Luka. They beat the Thunder Sunday without him. Of course, they had the rebounding advantage with P.J. Washington, Derek Lively, and Daniel Gafford in the rotation. I'm leaning towards the Mavs if Jokic is not playing. If Jokic is playing, then I would take the Nuggets. But since he's still questionable and we're a few hours until game time still, we'll take the Mavs. We'll take the Mavs. Why not? We're going to just YOLO. Kings and Clippers. Kings have been all right to my recollection. Let's go ahead and take a look at the standings here. The Clippers are half a game up on the Kings. And the Clippers have kind of surprised me in being somewhat decent so far to start the season. So we'll take the Clippers at home in Inuit Dome. Maybe it's that home court advantage. Their home court is really nice now. So glad they got out of the Lakers Crypto.com arena. But those are my picks. Let's go ahead and look at the odds. Philly favored at home by 5. Boston favored on the road by 16. Warriors favored on the road by 10. Milwaukee favored at home. Atlanta favored, although we are picking the Bulls on that one. Houston favored at home. And Denver favored at home, but we're picking the Mavs. And then, where did the odds go? They just disappeared on me. Okay, well, I think we just saw the Kings were favored, and I picked the Clippers right before it disappeared. But you have to go back in the video and pause and confirm that. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments down below and click one of the videos on your screen now for some more NBA discussion.